In the bustling city of Lagos, where the streets hummed with life and the air smelled of spice and adventure, there was a family that seemed to have everything. They lived in a mansion that stood tall and proud, with towering gates and a garden so lush it looked like a scene from a storybook. Inside this home was Mary and David, a couple deeply in love, and their 10-year-old twins Victoria and Victor. Mary was a vision of grace. She had soft, warm eyes that sparkled when she smiled and a voice that could calm any storm. Her days were spent creating a home so full of warmth that anyone who entered felt instantly at ease. She loved her family fiercely and showed it through her small, thoughtful gestures, cooking their favorite meals, leaving sweet notes in the twins' lunchboxes, and organizing movie nights where they all huddled together on the couch. David was the family's pillar. His sharp mind and hardworking nature had built their life of comfort and luxury, but he never let his business ventures take precedence over his family. David loved spending evenings teaching the twins how to play chess, telling them stories of his childhood, or simply sitting with Mary on the terrace, watching the Lagos skyline shimmer under the stars. Victoria and Victor were not just siblings, they were each other's shadows. They shared an unbreakable bond, always in sync like two halves of the same heart. Victoria, with her curious mind and artistic flair, was the dreamer. She loved drawing on the walls of her room, filling it with colorful murals that told her version of the world. Victor, on the other hand, was the thinker. Always curious about how things worked, he spent hours taking apart gadgets and trying to fix them, much to his mother's exasperation. Together they were a whirlwind of energy, laughter, and mischief, bringing life to every corner of their home. One bright Saturday morning, the house buzzed with excitement as the twins heard a familiar voice booming from the gates. It was Uncle Ben, Mary's younger brother. Uncle Ben was the definition of fun, loud, animated, and always full of surprises. He wasn't as settled as Mary. His life was a series of adventures, and he loved sharing his wild stories with the twins. Uncle Ben, Victoria and Victor shouted in unison, racing to greet him. He swept them both into a big bear hug, laughing as they bombarded him with questions. "What did you bring us this time?" Victor asked, his eyes twinkling with excitement. "Wait, don't tell me. It's a magic trick kit, isn't it?" Victoria guessed, tugging at her uncle's sleeve. Uncle Ben chuckled. "Patience, my little detectives. Let me settle in first." He reached into his bag and pulled out a box of chocolates and a set of board games, which the twins accepted with squeals of delight. "But no peeking at my other stuff," he teased, pointing at a stack of DVDs he had brought for himself. Over the weekend, Uncle Ben filled the house with laughter and joy. He taught the twins new card tricks, regaled them with tales of his adventures in far-off cities, and even joined them for a game of hide-and-seek in the sprawling garden. During dinner, he had everyone in stitches as he imitated their neighbors, adding dramatic flair to his impressions. However, Uncle Ben wasn't without his flaws. His carefree nature often bordered on careless, and though Mary adored her younger brother, she sometimes worried about his lack of boundaries. When he casually mentioned during dinner that some of the adult content movies he brought work for grown-ups, Mary gave him a stern look. "Make sure those stay out of the twins' reach, Ben," she warned. "Relax, sis," Uncle Ben said with a grin. "I'll keep them safe." When the weekend ended, Uncle Ben packed his things and said his goodbyes. As he hugged the twins one last time, he ruffled Victor's hair. "Stay out of trouble, you two," he said with a wink. But in his haste he forgot to take the bag containing the adult content movies. The week that followed was as ordinary and joyful as ever. David spent his days at work while Mary managed the household. The twins attended school, returning each day with stories of their classmates and playground adventures. In the evenings they played board games with their parents or curled up with Bruno, their golden retriever, who was as much a part of the family as anyone else. Then came the news of the school reunion. Mary and David were thrilled at the chance to reconnect with old friends. It was a formal event held at a grand hotel, and the couple decided it would be a rare opportunity to step out alone. "You'll be good while we're gone, right?" Mary asked the twins as she adjusted her earrings in front of the mirror. "Of course, Mom," Victoria said, her voice full of innocence. Victor nodded vigorously. "We'll just play games and maybe watch a movie. Don't worry about us." Satisfied, Mary and David kissed the twins goodbye and left, dressed in their finest. It was a perfect evening. The stars twinkled in the clear sky, and the city lights shimmered in the distance. Back at home, the twins found themselves alone with the housemaid. After finishing their homework, they decided to explore Uncle Ben's forgotten bag, curious about what he had left behind. Among the board games and trinkets, they found a small stack of adult content movies. "What's this?" Victoria asked, holding one up. Victor inspected the cover. "I think these are the ones Uncle Ben said were for adults," he said hesitantly. "But we're almost grown-ups," Victoria reasoned. "It's just a movie. How bad can it be?" The twins decided to watch one of the adult content movies, unaware of the impact this decision would have on their lives. As the screen lit up, they were captivated by the images before them, strange, new, and utterly confusing. It awakened a curiosity they didn't fully understand, setting in motion a chain of events that would challenge everything their family believed in. For now, though, the house remained quiet, the only sounds the faint hum of the television and the occasional bark from Bruno. Outside, the city pulsed with life, blissfully unaware of the storm brewing behind the mansion's walls. The night was still and quiet. The twins sat cross-legged on the soft carpet of the living room, the glow of the television illuminating their eager faces. The housemaid had retired early, leaving them to their own devices. Victoria and Victor were mesmerized as the images on the screen flickered before them. It was their first exposure to something they didn't fully understand but found deeply fascinating. At first they laughed at the awkwardness of the scenes, but as the movie progressed their laughter faded. They didn't know how to interpret what they were watching, but it made them curious in a way that felt both exciting and strange. The adult content movies, carelessly left behind by Uncle Ben, planted questions in their young minds that they were too young to answer. "I don't think we're supposed to be watching this," Victor whispered, though he didn't take his eyes off the screen. Victoria shrugged. "It's just a movie. Uncle Ben probably watches stuff like this all the time. Besides, Mom and Dad won't know." When the movie ended, they sat in silence for a moment, unsure of what to say. Their innocence had been shaken, but they didn't fully understand how. It felt like they had unlocked a door to a world they weren't prepared to enter. The following day, curiosity got the better of them. While their parents were still out, they played another adult content video. Each time, they found themselves drawn deeper into this unfamiliar world, imitating what they saw, not realizing the gravity of their actions. What started as innocent curiosity began to evolve into something more troubling. Days turned into weeks and the twins grew more secretive. The once vibrant games of tag in the garden and cheerful storytelling sessions turned into hushed whispers and stolen moments behind closed doors. Bruno, sensing something amiss, often sat outside their room whining softly. The housemaid, though preoccupied with her chores, noticed the change in the twins. "You two are so quiet these days," she remarked one afternoon. "Is everything okay?" "We're fine," Victoria said quickly, flashing a tight smile. Victor nodded, avoiding her gaze. But everything wasn't fine. The twins had become consumed by the strange new activities they had discovered. It was their secret, one they couldn't share with anyone, not even their parents. One sunny Saturday, Mary and David returned home from a charity event earlier than expected. The house was unusually quiet. Mary frowned as she entered the living room, where she found a stack of dishes untouched. "Why hasn't the housemaid cleaned up?" she wondered aloud. "I'll check on her," David said, heading toward the kitchen. Mary climbed the stairs, intending to check on the twins. As she approached their room, she heard muffled voices. Curiosity turned to concern as she pushed the door open. What she saw made her heart stop. Victoria and Victor froze, their faces pale with fear and shame. The room was eerily silent except for Mary's sharp intake of breath. "Victor." "Victoria." Mary's voice trembled with disbelief and horror. What are you doing?" The twins scrambled to their feet, their eyes wide with panic. "Mom, it's not what it looks like." Victoria stammered, tears streaming down her face. David, hearing Mary's raised voice, rushed upstairs. He stopped in his tracks when he saw the scene before him. "What's going on here?" he demanded, his voice a mix of confusion and anger. Mary turned to him, her eyes filled with tears. "David, they were... I don't know how to say it." Realization dawned on David and his face darkened with shock. "Where did you two learn this? Who taught you this?" The twins broke down, sobbing uncontrollably. Through their tears they confessed everything: the adult content movies, their curiosity, and the influence it had on their actions. They admitted that Uncle Ben had left the adult content movies behind, though they insisted he hadn't told them to watch them. David's fists clenched at his sides, his voice low but firm. "Go to your room. Now." The twins obeyed, their heads hung low with shame. Mary and David sat on the edge of their bed, the weight of the revelation pressing down on them. Mary buried her face in her hands. "How did this happen, David? How did we let this happen in our own home?" David exhaled sharply, trying to steady his emotions. "It's not just their fault, Mary. They're children, curious and impressionable. This is on us. And Ben. We trusted him." Later that evening, the twins were called downstairs. They sat on the couch, their faces pale and streaked with tears. Mary and David sat across from them, their expressions a mix of sorrow and determination. "Listen to us," Mary began, her voice soft but firm. "We are not angry with you. We are hurt and disappointed, but we know you didn't fully understand what you were doing. What you saw on those adult content movies was wrong. It's not real love, and it's not something children should ever be exposed to." David added, "We failed to protect you from this. We should have been more careful about what came into this house. But you both have to understand the seriousness of your actions. What you were doing is not right, and it could hurt you and others in ways you can't imagine." Tears streamed down the twins' faces as they nodded, their shame evident. "We're so sorry," Victoria whispered. "We didn't mean to hurt anyone." Mary leaned forward, taking their hands in hers. "We forgive you, but this has to stop now. You're still young and there's so much you don't understand. That's why you have us, to guide you, to teach you right from wrong." After the conversation, Mary and David contacted Uncle Ben. They confronted him about the adult content movies and the impact they had on the twins. Ben was initially defensive, but when he heard the full story, he was overcome with guilt. "I didn't mean for this to happen," he said, his voice thick with emotion. "I'm so sorry. I'll come by and take those adult content movies away. I'll do whatever it takes to make this right." But the damage had already been done. Mary and David realized that this wasn't just about removing the adult content movies. It was about rebuilding trust, guiding their children back to a place of innocence, and ensuring that their home remained a sanctuary of love and safety. The atmosphere in the house had changed. The once joyful energy that filled its walls now felt heavy and uncertain. Mary and David struggled to come to terms with what had happened, and though they tried to keep things as normal as possible for the twins, there was an undeniable tension. The secrets they had uncovered could not simply be forgotten or brushed aside. Victoria and Victor, on the other hand, were drowning in guilt. Their once carefree laughter was replaced with silence. They avoided eye contact with their parents and spent most of their time in their rooms. Even Bruno, their faithful dog, seemed to sense the shift, following them around as though trying to offer comfort. One evening, David sat at the dining table with his head in his hands. Mary placed a cup of tea in front of him, her expression mirroring his exhaustion. "What do we do, David?" she asked softly. "I feel like we're losing them." David sighed. "I've been thinking about it all day. This isn't just about what they did. It's about the gap that allowed it to happen. We've always been there for them, but maybe we weren't paying attention in the ways they needed us to." Mary nodded. "We've been so focused on providing the best life for them, this house, their education, everything, that we might have overlooked the small things. We can't just discipline them and hope it fixes things," David said. "We have to talk to them. Really talk to them. And we need to address the root of this issue." The next morning, Mary called the twins into the living room. They sat together on the couch, their hands clasped tightly as though bracing themselves for another round of scolding. But Mary's voice was gentle as she began. "Victoria, Victor, your dad and I have been thinking about everything that's happened. We realized that maybe we haven't always been there for you the way we should have been. We've been trying so hard to give you a perfect life that we forgot to notice when you needed us to listen, to guide you." Victor's lip quivered. "We didn't mean to hurt you, Mom. We didn't know how to stop once we started." Tears filled Mary's eyes, but she kept her composure. "We understand that. And we forgive you. But you have to understand something too. What you were doing isn't just wrong because we say so. It's wrong because it can hurt you in ways you can't even see right now." David chimed in, his voice steady but firm. "There are things in this world that can confuse and tempt you, especially when you're young. That's why you need boundaries, and that's why we're here, to help you understand what's right and what's wrong. But more than anything, we need to rebuild trust between us. That starts with honesty and communication. Victoria wiped her eyes. We'll do better. We promise. Mary nodded. We believe you. And we're going to help you through this. But it's going to take effort from all of us. The following day, Uncle Ben arrived at the house, visibly nervous. Mary and David had asked him to come over for a serious discussion. As he entered the living room, he immediately noticed the somber expressions on everyone's faces. I know I messed up, Ben started, his voice shaking slightly. I didn't mean for any of this to happen. I just wasn't thinking. David crossed his arms, his tone cold. Not thinking? You brought inappropriate material into our home, Ben. You left it where our children could find it. What were you thinking? Ben looked down, shame written all over his face. You're right. I was careless. And I'm sorry. I'll get rid of those adult content movies and I'll make sure this never happens again. But please don't shut me out of their lives. I love those kids. Mary's voice softened, though her eyes still held a stern look. We're not shutting you out, Ben. But trust is something you'll have to earn back. You've caused harm and it's going to take time to repair that. Ben nodded. I understand. I'll do whatever it takes to make things right. As the days passed, Mary and David took deliberate steps to address the issue. They sought help from their pastor, who counseled the family about forgiveness, healing, and the importance of leaning on their faith during difficult times. The pastor also offered to guide the twins, providing a safe space for them to talk about their feelings and learn about moral boundaries in an age-appropriate way. Mary and David also made changes at home. They implemented stricter rules about screen time and started spending more quality time as a family. Movie nights were revived, but this time with carefully selected films. Board games and outdoor activities became a regular part of their routine again, slowly bringing back the joy that had been missing. Victoria and Victor, though still grappling with their guilt, began to feel the weight lifting. Their parents' unwavering love and patience gave them the courage to face their mistakes and move forward. One evening, while sitting together on the porch, Victoria looked up at her father and asked, "Do you think God is mad at us?" David put an arm around her shoulders. "No, sweetheart. God isn't mad at you. He loves you just like we do. Everyone makes mistakes, but what matters is that you learn from them and try to do better. That's what forgiveness is all about." Victor, sitting on the steps with Bruno by his side, nodded slowly. "We'll make it up to you, Dad. To both of you." Mary smiled gently. "You already are, by being honest and trying to change. We're proud of you for that." That night, as the family prayed together before bed, there was a sense of peace that hadn't been there in weeks. The road to healing was far from over, but they had taken the first steps, and that was what mattered. Upstairs, as the twins lay in their beds, Victoria turned to her brother. "Do you think things will ever go back to normal?" Victor thought for a moment before replying, "Maybe not the way they were before. But maybe that's okay. Maybe they'll be better." Victoria nodded, a small smile forming on her lips. Better sounds good. Healing was not an easy journey. Though the family had taken the first steps, they quickly learned that true redemption required patience, effort, and unwavering faith. Mary and David worked tirelessly to rebuild the trust that had been shaken, and the twins wrestled with the consequences of their actions and the guilt that lingered. At school, Victoria and Victor struggled to focus. The once lively twins, who were known for their creativity and curiosity, now felt like shadows of their former selves. They avoided their friends and spent recess sitting together in silence. Their teachers noticed the change and sent notes home expressing concern. At home, Mary and David saw the toll it was taking on their children. Mary often found Victoria staring out the window, her sketchpad untouched, while Victor tinkered half-heartedly with his gadgets, something that once brought him immense joy. One evening, David called a family meeting. "We need to address what's happening," he said, looking at each of them in turn. "We've started the process of healing, but I think we need to go deeper. We can't let this define who we are as a family." Mary nodded. "We've talked to the pastor and he's recommended a family counselor. Someone who can help us work through this together." The twins exchanged nervous glances. "A counselor?" Victoria asked hesitantly. "Does that mean we're broken?" David placed a reassuring hand on her shoulder. "No, sweetheart. It means we're strong enough to ask for help when we need it. And that's what makes us a family. We face things together." The first counseling session was difficult. The twins were hesitant to open up, unsure of what to expect. But the counselor, a kind woman with a gentle demeanor, made them feel at ease. She asked simple questions, encouraging them to share their thoughts and feelings. It's okay to feel sad or scared, the counselor said. What you're going through is a process, and it's important to be honest with yourselves and with each other. Over time, the sessions became a safe space for the family. They learned to express their emotions openly, something they hadn't realized was missing before. The twins talked about their guilt and confusion, while Mary and David shared their fears and regrets. Slowly, they began to understand each other better. Meanwhile, Uncle Ben was on his own path of redemption. Deeply ashamed of his role in the situation, he took steps to turn his life around. He joined a support group at his church and began volunteering at a local community center, mentoring young people. One day, Ben visited the family carrying a small box. "I know I have a long way to go to earn your trust," he said, looking at Mary and David. "But I wanted to give the twins something positive to focus on." Inside the box were art supplies for Victoria and a beginner's electronics kit for Victor. The twins hesitated at first but eventually accepted the gifts, seeing them as a gesture of goodwill. As the weeks passed, the twins began to rediscover their passions. Victoria spent hours in her room, painting vivid landscapes and dreamlike scenes that seemed to reflect her inner journey. Victor became absorbed in building small devices, his creations becoming more intricate with each passing day. Mary and David encouraged their interests, praising their efforts and reminding them that they were loved unconditionally. They also made a point to spend more time together as a family, whether it was cooking meals, playing games, or simply sitting in the garden sharing stories. One Sunday, the family attended a special service at their church. The pastor spoke about forgiveness and renewal, emphasizing that no mistake was too big for God's grace. As the sermon ended, the pastor invited anyone seeking a fresh start to come forward for prayer. Mary and David exchanged a look before standing, taking the twins by the hand. Together they walked to the altar, their steps steady and sure. Uncle Ben, sitting in the back row, watched with tears in his eyes as the family knelt together, their heads bowed in prayer. That evening, as they sat on the terrace watching the sunset, Victoria broke the silence. "I feel different," she said softly. "Me too," Victor agreed. "It's like, I don't know. Like we're finally moving forward." Mary smiled, pulling them close. "That's because we are. Healing takes time, but every step we take brings us closer to where we're meant to be." David added, "And as long as we have faith in God and each other, there's nothing we can't overcome." Though the road had been difficult, the family had found a new sense of strength and unity. They weren't the same as they had been before the storm, but they were better, stronger, more connected, and deeply rooted in their faith. Victoria and Victor no longer carried the weight of their guilt alone. They knew that their parents were there to guide them, and that forgiveness wasn't just a one-time act but a daily choice. Uncle Ben, too, became a regular part of their lives again, but with clear boundaries in place. He had learned from his mistakes and was determined to be a positive influence. In time, the laughter returned to their home. The vibrant energy that had once defined their family was rekindled, this time with a deeper appreciation for the love and grace that held them together. Months passed, and the wounds that had once seemed insurmountable began to heal. The family had grown closer than ever, their bond strengthened by the trials they had faced together. The scars were still there, but they no longer hurt. They were reminders of the journey they had taken and the lessons they had learned. One morning, the sun shone brightly over Lagos City, casting a golden glow over the neighborhood. Mary stood in the kitchen, humming a hymn as she prepared breakfast. David entered, placing a gentle kiss on her forehead. "Good morning, love," he said with a warm smile. "Good morning," Mary replied. "The twins are still asleep, but I was thinking we could surprise them with a picnic at the park today." David's eyes lit up. "That sounds perfect. It's been a while since we've all had some carefree fun together." When Victoria and Victor came downstairs, they were greeted by the sight of a picnic basket packed with their favorite snacks and drinks. Mary and David beamed at them. "We're going to the park today," Mary announced. The twins' faces lit up with excitement. "Really?" Victor asked. "Really," David confirmed. "It's a day for family fun and relaxation. No distractions, just us." At the park, the family spread out a checkered blanket under a large tree. Bruno wagged his tail enthusiastically as he ran circles around the twins, who laughed and chased after him. Mary and David watched from a distance, their hearts swelling with joy. "It's amazing, isn't it?" Mary said softly. "To see them like this again." David nodded. It reminds me of how far we've come. We've been through so much, but by God's grace we've made it. As the sun began to set, painting the sky in hues of orange and pink, the family gathered together on the blanket. Victoria pulled out her sketchpad, showing her parents a new drawing she had been working on. It was a picture of their family holding hands in a circle with a bright light shining above them. "This is beautiful, Victoria," Mary said, her voice thick with emotion. "It's us," Victoria explained. "The light is God watching over us and keeping us together." Victor added, "She made it for all of us. Because no matter what happens, we're a family and we'll always have each other." David wrapped an arm around them, his voice steady. "That's right. We've faced darkness, but the light always shines brighter. And as long as we have faith, we'll never lose our way." The drive home was filled with laughter and music. The twins sang along to their favorite songs, their voices loud and carefree. Mary glanced at David, her eyes shining with happiness. "We're going to be okay," she whispered. David smiled, squeezing her hand. "We already are." That night, as the family gathered for their nightly prayer, the atmosphere was one of gratitude and peace. Mary led the prayer, her voice filled with conviction. "Lord, we thank you for guiding us through the storm, for showing us the power of forgiveness and the strength of love. We know we're not perfect, but we're grateful for the chance to grow and learn together. Thank you for blessing this family and for always being our light in the darkness." When the prayer ended, Victoria and Victor hugged their parents tightly. "Thank you for never giving up on us," Victoria whispered. Mary kissed the top of her head. "We'll never give up on you. That's what it means to be a family." Victor added, "And thank you for teaching us about God's love. It's the best thing you've ever given us." David ruffled his hair playfully. "That's because it's the greatest gift of all." As the twins went to bed that night, they felt a sense of peace they hadn't known in months. Their parents' love and forgiveness, combined with their renewed faith, had given them the strength to move forward. Victoria turned to Victor in the dim light of their shared room. "Do you think we'll always remember this?" Victor nodded. "Yeah. But not in a bad way. It's like Dad said, it's part of our story. And it's made us stronger." The next morning, the family woke up early to attend church. The service was lively, filled with music, dancing, and a powerful sermon about resilience and faith. As the pastor spoke, Mary and David held hands, their hearts swelling with gratitude. When the service ended, the pastor approached them. "It's good to see you all here today," he said warmly. "Your family is a testament to the power of faith and forgiveness." David smiled. "It hasn't been easy, but with God's help, we've come through it." The pastor nodded. "And you'll continue to grow stronger as long as you keep Him at the center of your lives." That evening, as the family sat together in the living room, Victoria brought out her sketchpad again. She handed a new drawing to her parents, a picture of their family walking hand in hand toward a bright horizon. "This is where we're going," she said with a smile. Mary's eyes filled with tears as she hugged her daughter. "It's beautiful, sweetheart. And it's exactly right," Victor chimed in, "because no matter what happens, we're moving forward. Together." David looked around at his family, his heart full. "A new dawn," he said softly. "For all of us." In the months and years to come, the family would continue to face challenges as all families do. But they had learned the value of faith, forgiveness, and unity. They had weathered the storm and emerged stronger, their love shining brighter than ever. And as the sun set that night, casting its warm glow over their home, they knew they were ready for whatever lay ahead, because they had each other and they had God.